Thank you for logging on to listen to the Newland Chase Global training on compliance. The recording is approximately 10 minutes long and an acknowledgement form should be signed following it. The objective of the presentation is to provide guidance to ensure that Newland Chase and all our local partners conduct business in an honest and ethical manner when dealing with immigration matters, to protect ourselves and our clients. That Newland Chase Global is in compliance with all applicable laws and regulations pertaining to bribery and corruption, and that we adhere to our data protection policy. These policies apply to Newland Chase Global officers, to any of our partners, and to any contractors that partners work with. Compliance is hugely important. We have signed contracts with clients confirming our adherence to global compliance and therefore also yours. The enforcement of anti-corruption law has increased steadily over the past years, and the repercussions of breaking law or breaching data protection can be far-reaching and include criminal fines and civil penalties or criminal sentences. Given the consequences, our clients cannot take any chances. They are requiring all of their suppliers who interact with government officials to represent that they comply with these laws and have training programs about corruption and bribery in place. We also have policies in place around the protection of client information, and will be sharing some specifics with you later in the presentation. There are laws and agreements throughout the world combating bribery and corruption. Some of these laws have international remit, for example the United States Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, FCPA, or the UK Bribery Act. Although these were originally US or UK laws, they apply to the actions of American and English companies acting anywhere in the world. The FCPA was the first law regulating bribes and dates back to 1977. For a long time, American companies said it was not a playing field in business because the US was the only country with a law like this. 20 years later, in 1997, a treaty was passed that required other countries to adopt laws similar to that of the FCPA, and as of 2014, 41 countries had ratified the OECD Convention, and all have adopted implementing legislation. Since Newland Chase Global has offices both in the US and the UK, both of these countries' anti-bribery laws impact our conduct and that of our partners anywhere in the world. It is also important that we respect any local anti-bribery and anti-corruption laws, even where the perception may be that such standards are loosely enforced by local authorities in that country. This slide sets forth the basic elements of a violation of the FCPA, and we will go over each of these elements in turn on subsequent slides before looking briefly at the UK Bribery Act and data protection policies. The first section: you cannot pay, promise, authorize, or give anything of value. Note that just offering or promising a bribe, even if one never goes through with payment, is a violation. There is also no requirement that a bribe be successful, so if a bribe is paid and the government official is not helpful, that is still seen as a violation. As discussed earlier, authorizing a third party to pay a bribe is also a violation. US enforcement officials apply a broad interpretation of what can be considered something of value. Bribery and corruption can take many forms, including the provision or acceptance of cash payments, but also jobs or consulting relationships for the official or the family, commissions or kickbacks, excessive gifts or hospitality, payment of lavish travel expenses, or the provision of personal favors. That means something of value is not just money or cash. We understand that there may be a culture of gifting at holiday times or special occasions in your country, and if this is the case, please do contact us to discuss how and when this may be appropriate and in line with Newland Chase Global business policies. Nearly every FCPA case ever brought has involved improper payments made through a third party or a supplier. A third-party agent is not permitted to do indirectly what a company may not do directly. We can violate the FCPA if there is knowledge that a third party we or you are working with is going to pay a bribe. However, we can also violate the statute if we ignore red flags or any suspicious circumstances around third-party work. Red flags may show up as the history or reputation in a country. So if a suspicious comment is made, the Department of Justice may see that comment differently in Nigeria or China than they would in Sweden. Countries where the exchange of gifts are part of the normal social or business customs may also be looked at more closely. As we said before, let us know if there is a practice in your country so that we can ensure that the provision of gifts is in line with business practice. In our industry, cash is sometimes unavoidable. Some embassies or ministries do not take other forms of payment. But if there is a request for a cash payment that is out of the ordinary, is higher than usual, or is not how the authority normally does business, this is a red flag. Note that we require all invoices to be clear and itemized, and to be accompanied by copies or photos of receipts for any cash payments made. To influence the official is the second part of the first element. FCPA is violated if payment or an offer is made to influence an official to take any official action, refrain from acting, or influence others improperly. The laws typically define government officials to include any appointed, elected, or honorary officials or career employees of a government-owned or controlled company, or of a public international organization. This applies to all branches and at all levels. Note that benefits to close relatives of government officials may be treated by enforcement authorities as benefits to the official and could be seen as a violation of law. The UK Bribery Act is a law that has got a huge amount of attention. It was passed in 2010, but only took effect in 2011. This act is also extremely broad, so if any part of one's business is in the UK, as Newland Chase Global does, the law applies to any aspects of your business anywhere in the world. Unlike the FCPA, the UK Bribery Act prohibits bribes of private individuals, not just government officials. It also prohibits the receiving of bribes and the payment of facilitation payments, which the US FCPA did allow. A facilitation payment is an occasional payment of minimal value made to expedite a routine government action. Facilitation payments are small bribes and are illegal according to Newland Chase Global policy. The UK Bribery Act also considers the failure of a business to prevent bribery a violation. We need to show that we have measures in place to educate all our staff and partners about compliance. This slide gives you a sense of the consequences of violating the FCPA. Since it is a criminal statute, individuals can be subject to imprisonment as well as large fines. Companies will be subjected to costly investigations and large fines even for small bribe payments. I believe that Siemens paid in excess of $800 million in 2007. If a company violates the statute, it could be barred from doing business with the government or with any international organizations, which would be very significant. And there would also be the loss of private companies who would not want to be associated with an entity that has violated law. Please ensure that all of your staff and any subcontractors that you may use on Newland Chase Business undergo this training and sign the acknowledgement form. Be transparent in your dealings and report any requests for improper payments. If a government official or any party requires a bribe or anything of value, we would ask that you turn down the request and inform us as soon as possible. Please send clear and itemized invoices that correspond with the fee quotation, and ask questions about anything you do not feel comfortable with with regards to bribery or corruption. We would ask that you do not make, offer, ignore, or receive any bribes, cash payments, or things of value. Please be sure that your invoices are accurate and true, and do not ask any third parties to falsify invoices, or accounting records, or make cash payments without receipts. Moving on to data compliance. Data security refers to protection measures that are applied to prevent unauthorized access to computers, databases, and websites to take confidential information from them. Newland Chase Global takes the security of client documentation very seriously and asks that any local partners adhere to measures to protect personal information. This relates to copies of or original documentation, as well as client information provided over email, telephone, or in application forms. Files and data may be accessed from computers by software, spyware, or by unauthorized individuals who gain access to a system or who watch discreetly while one is working. Security threats can also come from individuals making scam phone calls or sending emails that request personal information and seem to come from a legitimate source, like a client or a manager. To maintain the confidentiality of our client information, please take care in the following items. Do not open attachments or emails or unknown pop-up windows to install plugins. Use strong passwords and log out of computers or mobile phones when you're not working. Please be aware of working in public areas where people may have access to client information over your shoulder. It's important to keep clear desks and shred any confidential information following their use. Lock original client documents in a fireproof safe and escort any visitors to an office to ensure that they cannot get access to confidential areas. Please also ensure that confidential information to callers or emailers is not provided until their identity is confirmed. When in doubt, please ask us for guidance. Be careful with all personal data, be clear in your communications and your invoicing practices, and let us know if any work is outsourced to a third party so that we can ensure that they go through any compliance trainings and sign the acknowledgement forms for that. Protect yourselves and Newland Chase Global. Thank you very much for your time in listening to this training. We look forward to working with you further.